For more on the drama, we bring in Elaine at the Ankler. This is in streaming it happens, right? We know that there are certain overload issues, but this is not something that Netflix has really made a career of, live programming. Is this going to be a hindrance in the future or just something else to work through to evolve?
Well, this is Netflix, after all. This is the streaming market leader of the last decade or so. So never put anything past Netflix, but this was absolutely a debacle for them last night. They've only done live streaming once before, really, with the Chris Rock stand-up special Selective Outrage back in March. That went off without any problems, but it's very much so live, a new technology for them, and appears to be there appears to be a need to be more stress testing, perhaps. I mean, technologically, you'd think that this is a platform that would be able to handle anything, given its tech roots, its sheer engineering power. But of course, when you're looking at rolling out such an enormous new element at scale, there are going to be kinks that have to be worked out.
Is that Nick Lachey? I think Love is Blind. This is probably great PR for those of us who didn't know about this show.
I caught an episode recently myself and knew that there was a lot of buzz about this. A lot of reality fans were really excited for this. So there was a lot riding on this live special yesterday, right? And it's interesting because Netflix really hasn't expressed that much outward interest publicly, at least in the live space, at least compared to Apple TV Plus, Amazon, even Warner Brothers Discovery, which have live sports components on their streamers, or Peacock, which has news and sports on it. But I think the other element here is also just the immense amount of schadenfreude that the rest of the entertainment industry seems to take whenever Netflix makes a stumble, because it has been the streaming leader for so long, and it feels like the industry just never quite got over it. So anytime there's an incident like this, or last year, almost exactly a year ago, with the great Netflix correction, where they lost subscribers for the first time in a decade and laid off 450 people, there's definitely an outsized reaction from Hollywood.
What's interesting, first of all, I don't believe that Elaine's only watched one episode of Love is Blind. I haven't watched any, by the way, just so you know. I think she's underestimating how many episodes she watched. But first, if you take a look at the reason why this is important, like you said, this could, by the way, happen to any streaming service out there if they get a really popular show or anything like that. How much of the conversation now shifts towards just how much we consume live content on a streaming service, as opposed to going back to where we usually got it before, which was the old cable bundle?
That's an interesting question, right? Because I think when you look at all of the major networks and all the streamers, really, who is the only player bringing live appointment viewing back to the table? It's always been HBO and Warner Brothers Discovery. And so I think maybe this was a test of appointment viewing, of, the kind of outsized press attention and viewership that you can get from a live program, and, how much that can drive subscriber growth, especially, again, because we saw subscriber losses for the first time at Netflix last year. And they've also had to roll out an ad tier and crack down on password sharing in order to boost and, sort of support revenue initiatives over there. So I think that's an interesting element to it. I would say that when it comes to live viewing, that's an important element for sports in particular. And given that there are so many rights that have been tied up, I think it's an interesting way to go, with reality TV being the next frontier of live appointment viewing.
I don't know. Now we know why they were always so adamantly against live sports.
Well, that's a great point, though, about the sports thing. I mean, those things are like multi-year
contracts.
contracts.
Our parent company, Prime Video. I mean, there are streaming services, Elaine, newer to the field, that have had not this degree of technical problems, a few other bumps and problems here and there. With their earnings, do you think this overshadows them? I mean, obviously, password crackdown, some of the bigger issues around the stock. How significant is this really in the long term?
Well, I think for quarterly earnings tomorrow, it will unfortunately be one of the headlines going in, right? Especially since we're not looking, I think we're sort of past all the major executive restructuring, it feels like. It seems like the stock has certainly rebounded from the correction last year. Things seem to have sort of stabilized. So I think this will be a primetime moment in the earnings call tomorrow that live itself was not ready for primetime. But taking the long view, I know there are a lot of Netflix supporters out there who will say, hey, these guys are the Netflix, are the streaming market leaders.
Yeah.
And they've always been able to overcome this hump. So what's to stop them from really pursuing this long term?
Yeah, and just judging by the disappointed fans, they were able to make that appointment viewing even though they couldn't make the appointment. Elaine, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.